Hello everyone, welcome to Chapter 2, Lesson 1. And today this is scan the lesson to list two real-world scenarios in which you would use decimals written as fractions. So, we can do this by expressing length. You may need to write decimal into fractions. But we're actually just going to kind of move on. It says, music. The instruments below show the part of students in the school orchestra that play each type of instrument. It says, write 25 hundredths in word forms. 25 hundredths plays the brass. So we're going to say 25 hundredths. And because this ends in the hundredths place as a fraction, we can write this as 25 over 100. So if you see that this 25 hundredths kind of corresponds with the 100 for our denominator in our fraction. 15 hundredths, 15 hundredths. So write 15 hundredths as a fraction. 15 out of 100. In strings, this is write 31 hundredths in word form. So we can say 31 hundredths. And these are all decimals. And if you guys notice, same thing, our hundredths corresponds with the hundredths, corresponds to the 100 in the denominator. 31 out of 100. Woodwind, write 29 hundredths as a fraction. So we have 29 out of 100. So next, write decimals as fractions and mixed numbers. It says decimals like 25 hundredths, 15 hundredths, 31 hundredths, and 29 hundredths can be written as fractions with denominators of 10, 100, 1,000, and so on. Any number that can be written as a fraction is a rational number. Decimals like 3 and 25 hundredths, 26 and 82 hundredths, and 125 and 54 hundredths can be written as mixed numbers in simplest form. So just a reminder, mixed number is when we have a whole number attached to a fraction. So that's 3 and 25 hundredths, which reduce to 3 and 1/4. So examples, write each decimal as a fraction in simplest form. So this is a little bit blurry and I do apologize. So we have 6/10. So in our little table here, we have 6/10. So here's our decimal. And our tenths place is going to be right in here. And since we're with tenths, we're going to put 6 over 10 as our denominator. And we do know our greatest common factors. I say 6 and 10, do they have anything compatible with each other? They can each simplify with a 2. So divide by 2, divide by 2. And that equals 6 divided by 2 equals 3. 10 divided by 2 equals 5. So we have 3/5. So number 2, 45 hundredths. Our final decimal place is in the hundredths column here. So when we put this as a fraction, we're going to have 45 as our numerator, 100 as our denominator, because of the hundredths. And like before, we know this can simplify or reduce. And so the greatest common factor is going to be 5. So, or they can divide, can go into 5, can both go into 45 and 100. So it's going to be 45 divided by 5 equals 9 over 20. This time we have 375 thousandths. So our last digit ends in the thousandths place. And one thing I should point out is when I say last digit, I mean last digit that is not a 0. Because if you notice here, in the these are zeros. Since those are zeros, our numbers are still equivalent, so those actually don't matter. This is a 5, so that's our last digit that is not a 0. So that is in the thousandths place, so in my denominator I'm going to have 1,000. In my numerator I have 375. And if we simplify this, this will simplify to 3/8 because we can divide 125 on both sides. So just remember, I highlighted the place value and that helps with our denominator. And our numerator is the same. Our numerator is the same digit. That's a little dark. Our numerator is the same digit here. It's here. So we have 45 here. 45 is our numerator. 375 thousandths. 375 is our numerator. So that's how I'm getting my numerator. So go ahead and try A, B, and C. So pause the video. So for A I got 4/5, B I got 7/25, and C I got 1/8. And how I got those is, of course, like I said previously, I already know my numerators. So here, 28, 28, 125, 125. It's my denominators. This is 8/10, so 10 is my denominator. 28 hundredths, so 100 is my denominator, and 125 thousandths, so 1,000 is my denominator. And then in the blue is how I reduced to get my final answers. So moving on to example 4, it says the average length of a conch shell is 9 85 inches. Express 9 85 as a mixed number in simplest form. So I'm actually just gonna kind of write some of this to the side. So the 9 is gonna be my whole number. That's before the decimal. So that's gonna be my whole number of my mixed number. Now I have 85 hundredths. So my 85 is gonna be my numerator. And since this is hundredths, I'm gonna have 100 as my denominator because that is in the 85 hundredths is in the hundredths place. So I can simplify my 85/100. So I can actually simplify that. Both of them can divide by 5. So it's going to be 9. I know that's going to be 17/20. So my final answer is 9 17/20. So go ahead and try D. So I'm going to do D. I'm going to do it step by step with you guys. So right off the bat, my whole number is going to remain the same. So it's going to be 4. My numerator is my decimal. So it's going to be 65. And 65 hundredths is in the hundredths place. So I'm going to have 100 as my denominator. And if I simplify, my final answer is going to be 4 13/20. So 4 13/20. So now that we did from decimals to fractions, now we're going to do from fractions to decimals. So there's a couple ways we can do this. So I'm going to show you guys both methods. One method is to get the denominator to a power of 10. So if we have 9/12 is our fraction, I'm going to work over here on the side. We have 9 over 12. That's our fraction. And we need to get our denominator to 100. Our denominator, our ending point needs to be over 100. So how do we get from 12 to 100? Well, one way we can do that is if we simplify, because I know 3 goes into both, divide by 3, divide by 3, we get an equivalent fraction of 3 over 4. Because 12, I cannot multiply a number to get from 12 to 100. But if I reduce 12 to a 4, I can get 4 to 100. So instead of dividing 3 by 3, I can multiply 4 by 25 to get to 100. And whatever I do to the bottom, I must do it to the top. So now my number is 75 over 100. So 9 over 12 is equivalent to 75 over 100, which equals, that's my, and now that we're at 75 over 100, as a decimal, we know we can work backwards. Since our denominator is 100, this is going to be 75 hundredths as my decimal. That is method 1. Method 2 is divide. So as I've said this in the past, 9 over 12 is the same as the division expression 9 divided by 12. So I can rewrite this so I have 9 divided by 12. Now 12 cannot go into 9, so I'm going to have a decimal, so that goes in there 0 times. 12 goes in the 90 7 times. 7 times 12 equals 84. And I still have a remainder, so I can drop down another, I can add another 0. 12 goes into 60 5 times. 5 times 12 equals 60 minus 0, 0. Now this is, if you know how to do long division with decimals, because I'm actually, with my class, we work backwards. I do chapter 3 and then chapter 4. So this may be new to anyone that's not in my class, but this is long division with decimals. So now we have a final answer of 75 hundredths. So there's 2 ways. You can get your denominator to 100 by dividing and multiplying, or you can just simply divide. So go ahead and try E, F, and G. So I like the method where I'm changing my denominator to 100. So I know to get from 5 to 100, I can multiply that by 20. And whatever I do to the bottom, I must do to the top, so that way it remains equivalent. So now I have 60 over 100, which is going to equal 60 hundredths, or that also equals 6 tenths. Same thing with F, 14 over 25. I can get my denominator to 100 by multiplying it by 4, so whatever I do to the bottom, I must do to the top. So this is 64 over 100, and that's going to give me 64 hundredths. For G, we have 102 to 250, and remember, it doesn't always have to be 100, it can be any power of 10. So instead of getting to 100, I'm going to get to 1,000, and I can get to 1,000 by multiplying by 4. So that's going to be 408 over 1,000. So that means my decimal is going to be 408 thousandths. So I use the method of changing my denominator to powers of 10. Okay, so for number 6, a caterpillar can have as many as 4,000 muscles, compared to humans who have about 600. Write the length of the caterpillar as a decimal. Okay. So the word problem kind of has nothing to do with what the question's asking, but if we go to the photo here, we have the length of 1 3/8 inches. So 1 3/8 inches. So what we can do is they split up the whole number and the fraction, so 1 plus 3/8. I'm going to change 8. Well, we cannot simplify. So what they had to do was they had to multiply by 125 to get to my power of 10. Because I cannot change my denominator to 4. The reason I can't do that is because my fraction's already simplified. So I have to change it to a power of 10 by multiplying them both by 125. And when I get that, I get 375 over 1,000. So that's how I went from 8 to 1,000. So my final answer is going to be 1 375 over 1,000. And as a decimal, it's going to be my whole number 1 375 thousandths inches. But that is the end of the notes, so that's the end of the lesson. Thank you for watching.